Hello, everybody. This is Jill Garvin, Director of Psychological Health for the 102nd Intelligence Wing. Welcome to our podcast where we are discussing different wellness topics. If you would ever like to come on and be on the podcast, please contact me. I am in the global. Today, our topic is on grief. And I have Senior Master Sergeant Don Kochka, who's been with the 102nd for about 30 years. I'm going to call him Don. I have actually been working with Don for almost a year now for some supportive counseling. He's given me permission to say that. Hi, Don.
Hi, Jill.
One of the reasons I asked Don to be here today is because he's an incredible person, and he is very, very open with his about his grief and about sharing his story. And I am going to let him talk right now and to talk about his loss.
Thanks, Jill. So why don't we go back to 26 November of 2018, which was the day before the event. The 26th was the celebration of my wife Deborah and I's 30th wedding anniversary, which, like most relationships, are ups and downs, but I can honestly say that it truly was 30 years of great marriage. The next morning, the 27th, woke up like any other day, got up for work, kissed Deborah goodbye for the day. Later in the day, around 9 o'clock, she had called me and we had a conversation of taskers that we were working on, and ended like normal, love you, see you later. I normally work till 4:30, so got off, and my normal routine is to call Deborah on my way home to check in, make sure there isn't any other taskers or things that I need to do on the way home. Didn't get a response, not very unlike Deborah. Deborah is always going in a million directions and accomplishing all kinds of things. So called again about 10, 15 minutes later, still no answer, slight hesitation, but still thinking that, Deborah's just busy. So pull up in front of the driveway, and I notice that our Honda Pilot is mostly in the garage, and it looked like something was on top of the vehicle. And I'm thinking, oh geez, what did Deborah bring home now as another project that she and I are going to work on? So I parked the vehicle, and as I'm walking around, I realized that it's not something she brought home. It was the garage door on top of the vehicle, and the vehicle had penetrated and gone through the garage door. As I'm trying to process, as I'm running up, the vehicle is running, trying to find out if anybody's inside. I look through the passenger window because the vehicle was pushed mostly over to the left side of the garage. Couldn't see anything, run around the back. I look up the driver's side of the vehicle, and I notice two legs sticking out from the driver's door, trailing back alongside the vehicle. Realizing that she's trapped, she's pinned, I come around and go through the passenger door to try to get to her. She's very still. I start panicking, realizing I cannot get her out of this situation. If I try to move the vehicle, I potentially could do more harm. So immediately call 911, start talking to the 911 operator, ran over to my neighbors who were home, yelled into their house. They were in the back part of the house, so they didn't show up. So I ran back, trying to assess, is there something I can do? And then rescue showed up, and they were able to extricate Deborah out of the vehicle and start performing life-saving measures, upon which we were rushed up to the hospital And my oldest daughter was able to make it to the hospital, and the doctor came in and obviously gave us the bad news that Deborah had passed. So it was definitely a great shock. And as we're running through scenarios in our head, shock is setting in.
Wow. I mean, I can't imagine. I can't imagine what you went through in that moment and what you're still going through. You and I have talked a lot about, kind of the stages of grief. There's different theories. There are different theories on the stages of grief. Originally, Elizabeth Kubler-Ross came up with the shock, denial, bargaining, guilt, depression, acceptance, which actually was for newly diagnosed cancer patients. But very universal in terms of when we're dealing with grief, some of the different emotions that we go through, and certainly not in any kind of neat order. What would you say? I mean, just what are some of the different emotions that you've gone through since then?
Well, using those stages of grief as a baseline, and you could add levels of detail up and down on those specific, but I'd say that I have visited them all, not in any order, and I have revisited them again. The only one that I probably did not visit is denial, and only because I used to be an EMT, so I have a little bit of background. So I made an assessment when I arrived on scene. So I was there. I was there when the doctor pronounced. So out of all the stages of grief, that definitely didn't enter my mind. And I revisit the accident every day. There still is not 100% certainty of how the accident happened. So I'm a math and data guy, and I can't figure out the math and data. So anger was one of the emotions, and the anger was revolved around the car, because I didn't know if it was a defect on the car that actually caused the accident or if it was something else. So I had a private forensic guy look at the vehicle because I was mad at the car. Definitely depression, and that has gone up and down based on any given day.
And how do you take, with all of these different roller coaster of emotions, and I've been with you through some of these, how have you managed them? What has been helpful? And I want to ask what hasn't been helpful and what has been helpful, but how have you managed these emotions throughout this last year?
Some of the successes are first of all, asking for help. It was something I knew I couldn't do alone. I have been a supervisor and manager, and I profess to seek and use all the resources available. And I'd be remiss if I didn't use them myself. And that is not the reason I'm doing, because I think that asking for help is beneficial, and I have got a lot out of all of our sessions. I think we've come to some conclusions. We've come up with some courses of actions that work for me, and that also I have shared with family and friends, and has worked for them as well. The first 6 months were really tough, so I was eating a lot of comfort food. So that definitely wasn't a good thing, because I was gaining in weight. I was drinking a few IPAs to self-medicate, and I realized that wasn't good as well. So with all that, I reached out and and went on a diet program controlled by a doctor so that I could reset and try to move back to a positive direction. To me, it's all about balance, and I was not balanced. I was off my center, still off my center, trying to find my way back. We are 20 days out from almost 1 year, and I think about it every day.
Yeah. I wanted to ask you, so I think one of the things that really amazes me about you in the time that I've known you is your ability to ask for help. We've talked a lot about that. You know, one of the things that we really encourage here at the 102nd and we really try to work on here as a team is encouraging people to ask for help and reducing stigma and increasing connectedness and belonging. And I think we're definitely improving, but you really are such a role model for that, because you will openly cry. You will ask for help when you need it. You have great social support and connections, and not to sound, sometimes it's harder for men, right? And
Agreed.
And again, not to generalize, but and in the military, and you've been in the military for a while. So where did you learn to do this?
I grew up in the 60s and 70s, probably from your average family, so that stereotypical male role model was my father, that, men don't cry, right? Hide all your emotions. I've always been a big reader, so I've read a lot of different topics, nonfiction, fiction, and I would say that most of it is probably from the 30 years of marriage to Deborah. We had our eldest daughter suffered from mental health at 7, and is still seeking counseling to this day. So we would do more research and talk to more people, which put us in a lot of different settings. So asking for help. So it just became commonplace, and it's something that we've instilled in our two daughters, that if there's a problem, ask for help. If your friends have a problem, either reach out to us or reach out to somebody else. So pushing it down, that old school mentality of men don't cry and they should hide their emotions, is not winning any wars. Generally, it shows a definite health detriment, and I'm a big proponent about reaching out.
Yeah, and I've seen over this last year how you live your life. I know that you don't isolate. You have a lot of support here at work, people that care about you, that came out to the house after Deborah died and that have stayed connected with you, that check on you. You have great friendships. You and Deborah have great friendships. You go places, you've taken trips, you do things with your daughters. I know another example is you and Deb had some projects that you have been working on at the house, and you wanted to honor those things for her, and you continue to work on those things. And so, because I always say to people, especially that deal with depression, often people will say that they are feeling hopeless and they don't experience joy. They don't enjoy the things that they used to enjoy, and they tend to isolate. And so I always ask that question: how many supports do you have? And a good number is around 6 or 7, and that could be, I have a best friend. I go to the gym. I have a therapist. Just looking for 6 or 7 different ways that you connect, and you have way more than that.
Yeah,
You have quite a
30,
bit.
40,
Yes.
50 active members reaching out to me all the time.
And it makes a huge difference.
It does. Post-event, the love and support from this wing alone has been tremendous. And right after the event, I reached out to my deputy group commander and told him, please tell everyone if they want to reach out, please do. Because I know so many people are in the wing that care for me and would like to express their condolences and check in. And I didn't want to push anybody away and give them the opportunity. And as soon as I did that, obviously an influx of texts and calls, which were very much appreciated. And to this day, I have people checking in on me. If I may be just tired for that afternoon, and one of my coworkers will check in, hey, you okay? And I appreciate that, because it could be one of those days where I'm a little emotional. And those happen every day. I have been emotional every single day for almost a year. And I don't know when that will stop. Not that I'm trying to make it stop, because 30 years of wonderful marriage, she definitely was worth it. But everybody is on a journey, but it doesn't have to be alone, and that would be the part about asking for help.
I had somebody that came by my office this morning that was looking for someone else, and they said, hey, the year's coming up for Dawn. And I said, yeah. She said, okay, just make sure you're checking on him. And I said, okay. So yes, there are a lot of people that certainly care about you. I was also going back a little, what you were saying before. I know that you and Deborah had a really great marriage. You had a lot of respect for her. You had a lot of respect for each other. And I guess I want to say for other people that have had losses, sometimes we have losses. We've had losses when our relationships aren't so great with people, and that can make grief a little bit more complicated. Grief is complicated anyway, and it's very different for everyone.
Agreed.
I want to say that, but it can make it a lot more complicated if you're estranged from someone, if you have a lot of unfinished business with someone. It could be a parent, it could be a partner, it could be a child. And so, I always encourage people to not judge their grief and to not compare their grief to what they think it should look like or how someone else is grieving. But that can make it more complicated, the more complicated the relationship was. And so I'm sure in a lot of ways, I know you have a lot of gratitude for the relationship that you had, and the anniversary that you had just shared with Deb.
Absolutely. And that's what I hold on to, the fact that I got 30 years of marriage, and the amount of things that we did and the places we went and the things that we exposed our children to that are all fantastic memories. Yeah. I never asked why. Looking up to, why her? That's not me to figure out. It was
You
always
never
the how.
You never say why me.
Correct? No, it's not my. It's just not my belief system.
Yeah.
If you believe that everything happens for a reason, then it happened for a reason. I like to tell people that Deborah used to do great things here on Earth, and she fulfilled all those commitments, and she just got called up to play to a bigger room, so that she could do more great things.
Your daughters. You mentioned you have 2 daughters, and
I do.
I was also thinking about how, grieving as a husband, but also grieving for them having lost their mother. What has that been like for you and for them?
Both my daughters will say that they were very lucky as well. So both my daughters were best friends with their mother, which is not always the case. They had a great relationship, and one of the things we taught the girls early on is to communicate, and the girls would tell us everything, to the point where maybe there'd be too much detail, but they would come to us with things. So that was a source that they didn't have anymore. So it's brought the 3 of us closer together. They're 24 and 26, and they have moments where they struggle as well. My oldest daughter probably copes better because she's the one that had mental health since she was 7 and has been counseled since she was 7, probably has more coping mechanisms. So the one that we thought we better watch out for is actually watching out for my youngest daughter and myself. So a turn of events.
Yeah. What would you say has been the most helpful over this last year for you?
Reaching out for help and not isolating myself, still going to all those events. And there have been a couple events that I haven't gone to, but I've done a lot of traveling, both out of the country on vacations or out of the state to visit cousins or friends, or just going to barbecues, because even though it was my spouse that passed, Deborah was so well connected that I'd be remiss to think that I was the only one that was grieving. So all those friends that she shared with were grieving as well. So it was an opportunity to meet with them, one, so that they could check to see how I was doing, and then vice versa, to see how they were doing, how they were handling that grief for the loss of a true friend.
Yeah. So what hasn't been helpful around your grief? Like people's responses, things that people have said, those kind of things.
Well, we talked this probably it was either the first or second day that you come to my house, and you had given me a list of things that, even though people mean well, grief is so personal that most people don't know what to say, or they avoid you because they just feel uncomfortable, because they don't want to make you feel uncomfortable. But there are certain things where people will say, "Oh, she's in a better place." Well, that she may be, but that obviously doesn't help the person that is grieving.
I'd rather her be here.
Correct. I had, it was the day of the service, and I had one of Deborah's cousins who was a single guy who, he doesn't express himself very well. I finally cornered him, and he's like, "Well, just think, you'll be able to try bachelorhood again." So, wow. Okay. But knowing the person, And I've heard all these different comments for almost a year, and it's generally somebody that they mean well, they just don't have the right words to say. And saying nothing is okay. Just saying, hey, you're going to be all right. I'm here for you. It is okay.
Yeah, and also, you know, after someone dies, people, especially right after the funeral, you know, people are very supportive and they're there, but usually families need someone after some time has passed, you know, because everyone kind of goes back to work, goes back to kind of their normal lives, and again, you've been lucky that you've had that sustained support. But I also want to remind people that if you do know someone that's grieving, especially like you have this year anniversary coming up, a lot of firsts, you know, holidays, it is really important to remember and to reach out to those that are grieving, even though time has passed. I think another cliche, and we did talk about this, you know, people will say, you know, it's been a year. You know, you should start to move on. Or don't you think it's time to get over it? And I always tell people, and this is a conservative number, especially if you've had a significant, which you had, and a traumatic, which you've had, loss, you know, it takes a good couple of years to just, for some of the shock to wear off. Now, I know you realize what happened, and you're not in denial about that, but just for the actual realization and for some of that shock to wear off really takes a lot of time, and things never go back to normal. You know, you create this new normal for yourself, and you never get over it. You learn how to get through it. You learn how to navigate, you know, through your grief. You learn how to ride the waves of grief, but it's certainly not anything that you ever get over. And again, people mean well, but some of those things can be really hurtful to the person and can really minimize their grief, and they have to be very careful. And you and I, again, have talked about, you're coming up on a year, and we've had these discussions around your intensity level. You know, sometimes, you know, I hate to sound like a therapist, but we'll use numbers, you know, on a scale of, you know, 1 to 10. You know, some weeks you're a 6, some weeks you're an 8. 10 being, you know, the most intense. And, you know, 5 years from now, you could still experience those 8 and 10s, and then have some years where they're not as intense. You know, it's always changing. And you did say earlier that, you know, how your mind works, you like to kind of fix things and figure it out. And grief has got to be frustrating for you sometimes, because it's so messy, and there's just no straight line.
Absolutely. It is messy, and every day is different. Probably the biggest thing that I feel is lonely, but not lonely as in I don't have people around me, because I have a tremendous support network from within the wing and outside the wing, but it's that specific loneliness for Deborah.
Yeah.
The fact that I can't call her. She won't be at home when I come home. So that throwing you off center, what is the new normal? How do we do things? Those celebrations, those traditions that you had as a family unit, now minus a human, and you got to figure out what that new tradition is, or starting new traditions with a different group. So it is messy. Grief is it's cultural, it's religious, it's upbringing, it's some of the male stereotypes. So it's trying to break those barriers and figure out what works for you.
Yeah. Have you ever thought of suicide?
No, not for this event, not for any event. I can't say where I got that ability. I don't think I'm better than anyone else, but it's just never something that's entered my mind. I enjoy life. I enjoy people. I enjoy everything that I can do and things that I have yet to do. So that's not something that's entered my mind. However, if it is something, I can only suggest that ask for help.
Yeah. What would be, as an early griever, what would be advice that you would give someone right now that's going through grief?
Reach out and reach out to our DPH. Reach out to another therapist. Reach out to a friend, but find somebody that shares your values, that you can talk to, that is not going to judge you, that is going to be supportive. So one of the things that I did, which was probably outside my character, was I went and saw a medium.
Mm-hmm.
Something very different. My oldest daughter was like, why are you doing this? This
Who
is
are
something
you,
very
Dad?"
different. Yes. And a medium obviously is for that ability to speak to spirits in the afterlife. So I didn't go there for the conversation. I went there for love and comfort. I went there to potentially find some peace regarding the car, and I achieved that. And for me, it was a very positive experience. I don't suggest that that's for everyone, but if it's ever something you're thinking of, it's an option like anything else.
That's another great example of how different things work for different people. That brought you love and comfort.
It did.
And I saw you after you did that, and it really gave you some peace of mind. So, yeah, I would suggest to folks to be open, to try something you've never thought of, to explore it. And you're even trying yoga with your daughter, which is amazing. That takes care of your mind, spirit, and body as well. And sometimes getting out of your comfort zone and trying different things can really help you in your grief. What is I know you have a lot of wonderful memories of Deborah, but what would you say is one of your favorite memories of her? What do you miss the most? Or one of the things you miss the most?
Generally, everyone has a pet name for their significant other. And from day one, I've always called her Sunshine. She's always been that bright light, that shining star in my life. And it's that brightness, and not just her smile, but the way her brain works. And she was the true connector in our relationship. She had a standing order of a phone call with a childhood friend from when she was 10 that they would talk every single day. So those are the things that I miss. I miss that beautiful kindred spirit who loved life just as much as I did, and I got to share that.
She was such a teacher, wasn't she?
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah. So, I know that you said before we talked that you would be open if anyone wanted to contact you?
Absolutely. At any time, anywhere, reach out. I'd be more than happy to meet anybody anywhere and have a conversation to help in any way that I can.
Yeah, again, Don Kochka, he's in the Global. You can also contact me if you wanted to get in touch with him. Again, different things work for everyone, and sometimes therapy is helpful. But really, one of the most powerful things that you can do is to work with someone or to talk with someone that can really truly identify with what you're going through, that's been there themselves. So I encourage you to reach out to Dawn. There are other resources. You can reach out to, there's always a local hospice. It doesn't have to be a death from cancer. Hospice will work with all types of grief. There are children's camps. There's equine therapy for grief. You can also contact Give an Hour, Military One Source. Again, I have a ton of resources, and I'm more than happy to pass those on to you. There are some therapists on the Cape and off the Cape as well that do specialize in grief counseling. And I'm happy to email you some resources that I have as well, how to talk to your children about grief. Some literature that will kind of, earlier in my social work career, I worked in the field of grief around sudden and traumatic loss. And, a lot of people felt that they were going crazy and that there was something wrong with them for the way that they were grieving. And it's really helpful to talk to someone or to even read something that will normalize your grief reactions, because you will often have crazy feelings and reactions to events that have been really horrific, and that's actually normal. And so those kind of things are really helpful. So please don't carry those around by yourself. Please share them with someone, and I'm happy to speak with anyone. So again, this is Jill Garvin with the 102nd. You can contact me in the Global. You can also call my cell, which is 508-237-6652. And again, we've been speaking with Dawn Kochka. I really appreciate you being here today, Dawn. Thank you for sharing your story with us.
Thanks for allowing me the opportunity.
Thank you.